Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the Full10Yard NFL podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Full10Yards NFL podcast. I'm your host Sam Moores and we have just had the divisional round, and as always it was probably one of the best weekends in the NFL season. Joining me to break it all down, all four games on the divisional weekend, is the one and only Mr. Liam Horsley, back on the podcast again, and I'm sure he's very, very happy after the Chiefs won. But yeah, it's great to have you on again, Liam.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Great to be on. Pretty tired after last night's game, but yeah, good games to chat about today. And it's the first time we've spoke since Dolphins Chiefs as well. So glad you actually invited me back on. I was worried I'd be banned until next season, so it's good to be back on.
No, I was expecting it. So yeah, it's I don't really. I'm okay talking to you now, mate. That's all fine. Before we get on to the four games, we'll do a little bit of talk as it has been announced that Brian Callahan, the Bengals offensive coordinator, has just been hired as the Titans head coach, in the next person to be head coach after the shock firing of Mike Vrabel a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, Liam, this is I wasn't really expecting this one. He's been in the coaching interviews for a while, the last couple of years, but yeah, I was expecting him to go after an offensive guy, maybe someone like Bobby Slowick, to be fair, but yeah, they've gone for Callahan. What's your thought on this hire?
Yeah, it was a little bit out of left field, but like you said, he's had loads of interviews the last 2 years, so he must interview well and kind of be well known around NFL circles more than kind of the average fan, I would say. And I think this is a bit of a weird year for it because the level of coaches that are able to hire. Obviously, they're not going to hire back Vrabel, but just as an example, Vrabel, you've got Belichick, Jim Harbaugh, Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald from the Ravens, who hasn't had many interviews. You'd think maybe this was the year you go for a kind of a bigger name, but he must have done well in the interview process. I actually think it's a good hire in terms of, if you look this year, especially this year, the offense was actually quite good for the Bengals with a worse player. Do you know what I mean? Like the first year that he was there, it was very much just, I don't want to say this because Bengals fans will hate it, but the offense wasn't very good schematically. It was just like, we've got so many good players, are we just going to win and score loads of points? Because Burrow reads the pre-snap defense, Chase, Higgins, Boyd, one of them will get open, we'll throw the ball down the field and we'll win games. But this year, he did a really, really good job. The only worry for them is he's never called plays, so he's the offensive coordinator, but Zach Taylor still calls the plays, so can he kind of make that step up? Will he still call all the plays? Will he not? I think that would be the interesting part to see. But yeah, he's been a name kind of recognised for a while, did really well this year. So in theory, I think it could be a good hire, but I guess it just caught me a little bit off guard. Now, if he brings his dad in with him, who's one of the best offensive line coaches to ever live, he currently is the O-line coach, I think, for the Browns. If he brings him in, it's an even better hire because he can coordinate the run game like he's done for years everywhere he's been, and the pass protection game for blitzers, and the offensive line there, which is not very good at the moment, can then grow and be good. So if he comes with him, I think it could be a great hire. But if he doesn't, we'll have to just see because, he's not the most well-known in terms of schematically. But yeah, he had a good year this year, so we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Titans' offense looks next year as well, because no Derrick Henry, you'd assume, and they will be encouraged by what sort of will Levis down the stretch as well. So I expect he probably had a plan for Levis as well going into the interview.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Which is quite odd, actually, because Burrows throws a lot in the middle of the field, kind of tight window throws. Will Levis, not his kind of speciality, really. He does struggle in tight windows, struggles reading defenses. So it's a different quarterback to what Callahan's used to. But like you said, he would have gone in with a plan in the interview. Whether that plan is, we need someone else, that could be the plan. But what you'd have gone into a plan saying, this is what I want, this is how I think we can get there, this is how long I think it'll take. And obviously Titans brass thought, yeah, I like the idea of that. From all accounts, he's a very good person, very good leader, very good at talking to the team, kind of quite relatable. Now, Vrabel is a good leader too, but a different style of person. He's very much more kind of aggressive and headstrong. So the GM/owner probably wanted a different type of personality there as well. So we'll see. But yeah, you're right. He would have had a plan with the QB, and then they'll have a plan. Probably give him 2 years, I would imagine. I'd be surprised if it's a one and done when he's kind of such a young up and coming coach in the NFL. But yeah, we'll have to see. I like the fact they've gone offense rather than defensive coach. I think that makes a lot of sense.
A lot of the time as well, if you're firing a good defensive guy like Vrabel or like Pete Carroll or Belichick, for example, you're probably going for an offensive guy. You just want to move to a completely different direction. I thought that Tennessee would do that as well. So yeah, it makes sense on that part. We'll see how he fares. Anyway, right, let's get on to talking about these games. And we'll go in chronological order. So we start the game on Saturday with between the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans. And in this one, MVP favourite Lamar Jackson showed off his dual threat ability as the Ravens set up a home AFC Championship game with a win over the Houston Texans. The star of the show was Jackson, as I said. He threw for 2 touchdowns and he ran for 2 more as well, with 152 yards in the air and 100 yards on the ground on their way to victory. I was actually watching this game in London. I was away for a family celebration this weekend, so it was a close game, a low scoring one score game at the start of the fourth quarter with the Ravens driving to go and score again, but it took control at the end, and that was around the same time that I left to go from central London to the hotel I was staying at. And by the time I was off the tube and back to the hotel, it's a 3-score game, and the game the Ravens just turned it on like that. Lamar hit Isaiah Likely for a 15-yard touchdown to extend the Ravens' lead to 2 scores at the start of the fourth quarter before running in for his second touchdown on the ground with 6 minutes remaining. This wasn't the best game to kick off the divisional round, but it was certainly a lot of talking points, and Lamar was just brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was good. Yeah, very good down the stretch, using his legs as well. Also very good mentally, because obviously that story's come out now that he went to the coaches at halftime and said we need to stop throwing the ball deep. We need to start the kind of short passing game, run the football, and kind of get the offense going a little bit. And that was, rumours are, that was his views, and the coaches listened to him, and it obviously worked. So, yeah, he was the star of the show. I think he scored 2 touchdowns, and he had only 152 yards in the air, but over 100 yards on the ground. And second half, they just kind of dominated the clock if you look at time of possession. So, yeah, he was very, very good. I thought their defense was good. The front 4/5 when they blitzed, I thought were really, really good. Gave CJ a lot of problems, gave that offensive line a lot of problems. But it was interesting because it wasn't the best game, but the first half I thought was quite fun. It was quite sloppy. Texans had a great plan coming into it. Like I said, Ravens adjusted second half. But first half, I thought, the weekend's kicking off to a great start. And then, yeah, second half, Texans were just kind of overwhelmed. It's happened to Baltimore all year. They've really dominated second halves of games, or 2 quarters in a row, whichever, whether that's second and third, first and second, third and fourth. They've just kind of dominated teams for a little stretch, scored 21 points, 17 points, and the game's over. And the same thing happened here. But yeah, Texas shouldn't be kind of sad with their performance. It just didn't quite work out well. If you look at that, 11 penalties accepted. It was just too big for them, unfortunately. And the Ravens showed they were the more experienced team. But yeah, you're right. Lamar was definitely star of the show.
Certainly, and that powered the Ravens to another big victory, another victory against a big, winning record team. Of course, it's in the playoffs, they're all going to win records. But yeah, they had 6 wins against teams with winning records in the regular season, and they silenced their doubters once more in the playoffs, coming into this one with that win. Because before this game, they were 1-4 in the playoffs since they sort of returned regularly in 2018, which has coincided with when they drafted Lamar Jackson. The 1-3 of Lamar because Tyler Huntley started the game last year, and he also got injured in one of them as well. But despite having some super talented teams and getting the 1 seed in his last MVP season, the Ravens have struggled in the playoffs. But this team is different, isn't it? And they showed that. All season, and really in this game as well. They showed that they're just so good everywhere, aren't they? Yeah,
they are a very good team. I think what showed this year compared to other years is how good both their coordinators are as well. Offensive and defensive coordinators are very good. I mentioned Mike McDonald earlier in the head coach chat. He should be a head coach. He's their DC. Offensive coordinator Tom Munkin's done it all, college level, NFL, much better than Greg Roman. And you just kind of saw in this game that they could actually play 2 or 3 different ways. It didn't need to just be the same way. When the same way doesn't work in a playoff game, you've only got 20, 30 minutes left to adjust, whereas Todd Monken could have let kind of Lamar and John Harbaugh adjust on the fly. So yeah, much better team than they've had before. Still started slow, which I think probably something most people in their preview pods were talking about. Another year with the bye, will they start slow? And they did actually start slow. Didn't have loads of success in the air, but they can win a game multiple ways. Special teams, defense, running the ball, throwing the ball if they need to. And they looked really, really dominant. But I think some of this was more the Texans just being a year too early as well, which I think you could tell as the game kind of wore on, to be honest.
Certainly. As you mentioned as well earlier, the Ravens controlled the clock with almost 40 minutes time of possession, 229 yards. On the ground, but didn't really find the end zone until the end. But as you mentioned earlier, the defensive line for both defenses played pretty well in the first half. But the Houston defense forced the Ravens to 4 punts quite early on. But it was the offense that let Houston down in the second half. But as I said numerically on Friday with Ollie, I said that they are one of the best defenses ever because they lead in sacks per game, takeaways per game, everything that is important on defense. And I mean, fair play to Mike McDonald, as you said earlier, the defensive coordinator. He's had some head coaching interviews. He's had a turnaround the last couple of years because last year, especially early on, the defense was the issue. Then they made the trade for Roquan Smith and they sort of switched after. They've got a lot better down the stretch after Smith came in. And then this year, they've been excellent all year on defense. I mean, you mentioned he's not had many interviews. I mean, for me, I'd be giving him a head coaching job because he's had an outstanding year, and I'm sure you feel the same, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think the Falcons have still got an interview with him. A second interview with him next week, I think. Him and Ben Johnson, they can't interview till next week. There are people out there that are interested, but it's just more the Panthers and Titans that seem like they weren't as interested. I think both those teams could have done well in hiring him. It just depends what you want. Do you want an offensive or defensive mind? But he's definitely a guy that should get a chance. Even Todd Monken, to be honest, another guy that college teams should look at for a head coach role. Done it in the pro game, done it in the college game. So, very good scheme. Defensively wise, obviously, he's got good players as well, but it's not like they're blessed with...
Last year, they had good players and they weren't great. Like this year, they've been significantly better than they were last year.
Yeah, and they're still not blessed with, they haven't got now Marlon Humphrey so in and out. They haven't really got a number one corner. They haven't got a
star pass rusher either. That's the thing. They get sacks. They get sacks by just by the committee pretty much, and it works though. They have the most sacks in the league, so it does work.
Yeah, it does work. Yeah, very similar to the Eagles last year, where they kind of spread it around a lot more. But I know the Eagles had Hassan Reddick, who's a bit more of a star name. But Justin Madubuike is really good defensive tackle, but on the edge, it's guys that a lot of teams would be like, "Oh, that was our starter before the season. Okay, we're not going to get loads of sacks, but he's an okay player." Whereas when it comes to the Ravens, they've done this for 10 years. They get a pass rusher, he gets 10 sacks, they let him walk, they get a compensatory pick, and then they go to the draft and draft another one. It's just been the story of the Ravens. But they're doing this without stars on that end. The difference is they've got a star safety in Carl Hamilton, star linebacker and Roquan Smith, and they're the two really that kind of take that defense to another level. Because all the other players, you'd be like, okay, we can pick on him, but with those two, plus for me, the best defensive coordinator outside of maybe Spags and Belichick in the NFL drawing up game plans, it just leads to a really, really good defense. And what they don't do is they don't make many big mistakes. You could see that this week. If you look at how many times they had coverage busts, it was nigh on ever. The only time they did was like a 15, 20-yard pass. So they're very sound on defense as well, which they'll need to be if they want to win the Super Bowl, obviously. But for this game, the Texans just couldn't do enough, unfortunately. And the crowd noise seemed like it made a difference as well with all those 11 flags. I think 6 of them were on the offense as well for procedural penalties. So not good for the Texans offense, but you're right. Ravens defense best in the league.
Certainly. And as you mentioned, it's a disappointing way that the Texans season ended, but this is only the start for their regime. They're going to be, as I mentioned, a year too early. They've got loads of cap room, so much cap room, so they can go out and get better. Again, they've got a first round pick this year because of the Deshaun Watson trade as well. So they've got capital to get better this year, and this is only the start of what they're capable of, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And they also had injuries as well. Look how many wide receivers and defensive tackles they had out for this game.
Offensive line as well. Tunsil came back, but their offensive line's been very injured as well. So.
Yeah, and obviously in this game, defensive tackles would have mattered for stopping the run. You need wide receivers against such a good defense just to try and keep them honest and have someone else to throw to that isn't Nico Collins. So they're in a great position. CJ Stroud was great all season. Wasn't great, to be honest, in this game. But they're just a year too early. Probably 2 years in terms of actually trying to win something. But loads of cap space, really good position in the draft. In 2 years' time, this year, obviously, they're not going to have their first round pick because of the Will Anderson trade, but they've still got kind of enough assets to go at it. And to be honest, speaking of like head coaching candidates, even Bobby Slowick, their OC, probably also a year too early. It's kind of a year too early for the whole team, because you could see in this game they're the 31st in the league at rushing on first down. The Ravens are the best rushing defense on first down. And what did they keep doing? Rushing it on first down for 1 yard or minus 1 yard. And CJ Stroud was in 2nd and 10, 2nd and 11 the whole game. I think even then you could tell, right, if that was, I don't know, if that was Andy Reid or Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, they're having a different plan on first down just to make sure they're not in 2nd and 10 for the whole game. Whereas second half, they did the same on the first 2 drives. So, yeah, they're in a great position. Good coaching staff. D'Amico's done an incredible job, but just another year of experience will help them. And arguably, they might be favoured next year to win their division with how good CJ played.
Yeah, certainly. And, see him next year, hopefully, if Slowick can stay as well, that'd be great for Stroud in the second year of the same system, same offensive play call. That'd be perfect for them as well. And I don't think he'll be in the running for the top jobs. And if I'm him, I wouldn't take the Carolina job or like that job. I'd stay well clear of. So I if I was him, I'd stick on in Houston. As for the Ravens, they now go on to their first AFC Championship game since 2012, the season that they won the Super Bowl. There's a chance they could actually play the Niners again in that Super Bowl as well, which would be funny, as they did that year. Right? And just some of that game as well. Like, I mean, we'd rewatch it again, and the rewatch was just as good, especially as mentioned in the first half, as it was the first time. Although I was a little bit intoxicated the first time I watched it, so my memory's a bit faded because it was a bit of a heavy drinking session that night in London. Anyway. This next game, Packers-Niners. I watched this game in the hotel. I watched most of it anyway, then fell asleep. And in this game, the Niners made it back-to-back NFC Championship game visits after coming from behind to beat the Packers in this one. It means that Kyle Shanahan is now 3-0 against Matt LaFleur in the playoffs after beating him once again. And this was the first of 3 games this weekend that came right down to the wire. It was a bit scrappy because of the weather. It was raining in San Francisco, and it was a close, low-scoring affair for a lot of it, as it was the last time these teams met in the playoffs as well a couple of years ago. But this game came alive in the third quarter. The Niners led 7-6 at half-time, with Purdy's 32-yard throw to George Kittle being the only touchdown of the first half. Really nice throw from him as well. Lovely pocket movement to move to the right and then hit it right in the money in front of Kittle for the touchdown. And they also had a field goal blocked when time expired as well, so the Niners could have been 3 points up, but Moody's field goal was blocked. But after half-time, the Packers stopped San Francisco and took a 6-point lead through a Jordan Love pass to a wide open Bo Melton in the back of the end zone, and that from that play, the third quarter and the rest of the game just exploded, because the second half of this game was awesome. The Niners responded instantly with a big play to George Kittle, and that then set up a 39-yard Christian McCaffrey run through the middle of the Green Bay defense for a touchdown. And then the following kickoff, Green Bay's all-pro punt returner Keyshawn Nixon had a 73-yard return, setting up the Packers up with a great scoring opportunity at the 20-yard line as well. And the Packers took that opportunity, they reclaimed the lead, with Tucker Kraft catching Love's second touchdown of the game, and they converted the 2-point conversion to make it a 21-14 lead. Now, you think that's enough? Nope, there's more. Of course, we will watch the game at the end of the third quarter. The Niners, who had just punted, came away with a turnover after a third down miscommunication with Love and Tucker Kraft, which saw Dre Greenlaw intercept the ball that Kraft tipped up. Just couldn't quite grab the football. And the Niners scored off that interception with a 52-yard Jake Moody field goal to reduce the deficit to 4 points. And with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Anders Carlson had a 41-yard field goal to make it a 7-point game, with the Niners needing to score on their final drive to take the game to overtime. And if not, the Packers, who were certainly holding their own in this game, they could have, if they even missed a kick, they could have got pipped at the final hurdle. And that they were, because Carlson's attempt was wide left, and the Christian McCaffrey made them pay, running in for his second touchdown with a minute left to take the lead. A nice drive from Brock Purdy and, well, mostly the skill players around him on that final drive to take down as much clock as possible and win the game for the Niners. Well, he scored, and then with a minute left, it gave the Packers one more opportunity to get out of the field, and it was Dre Greenlaw again who intercepted Jordan Love for the second time to ice the game after a poor throw on his back foot. And that set up a home NFC Championship game for the San Francisco 49ers. It wasn't pretty, but they got there, didn't they?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't pretty. But yeah, they got there. I think obviously everyone talks about certain teams getting to the AFC title game a lot in a row, but I think they're 3 out of 4 at least now, if I'm right, the 49ers. But yeah, for me, they were very lucky for this game. Packers were by far the better team. But by far the better quarterback as well. He had 3 bad throws on the day, one where he missed a touchdown, 2 picks, which, there was a miscommunication, but kind of seems like Matt LaFleur indicated that was on Jordan Love rather than Tucker Kraft. And also then he could have just eaten that and not thrown it the way he did. Like, if you look at it, he's released the ball after Tucker's already moved. So he still throws it even when he's kind of read the wrong side of the defense. So shouldn't have thrown that. The end one is a little, I'm not as even bothered about the end one. Like, in a game-winning drive or time drive, you shouldn't throw across your body. You got a little bit too much with the comparisons to Mahomes that he'd heard probably in the week before, trying to throw across his body 40 yards. But for me, it was the other one that was the more of the issue. And they also got stopped on 4th down once, which was just a bad play. Yeah, just a bad double play call. The 4th down call was okay, but the 3rd down run, I thought it was too obvious they were going to run it there, and they just stuffed Aaron Jones. So I think a couple, like 3 or 4 decisions, just didn't quite do enough. And then we all knew the Packers defense was going to give up yards to CMC on the ground. It's just what they're weakest at. They've done this. Yeah, they've done this for 4 years or 3 years with Barry, the defensive coordinator. So it was always going to happen. You needed your offense to win you the game, and they looked like they were going to do that. And then just a couple of silly errors, unfortunately, and obviously a missed field goal, which he's done all year, just led to them not quite getting it done. But 49ers win when they don't play well, which good teams have to do. But there were some signs in this game that would worry me for next week if I was a 49ers fan, definitely. And definitely in the Super Bowl, because both AFC teams, defensive coordinators blitz you to death. And Brock Purdy was like, at one point in this game, was 0-6 versus the blitz in the first half. And that would worry me if I was them. But again, it could just be the rain. He's got very small hands and can't play football in the rain with that glove on and off that he kept taking on and off the whole game. But it was a fun game to watch as a neutral because I didn't care about the result, but I thought the Packers deserved to win.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there. The Niners did look a little bit rusty. Would you say that's just because they've not played for 3 weeks, or would you say that's just that the Packers had a good game plan? A bit both, maybe.
I'd say on offense, the weather probably had more to do with it for Brock Purdy. And I do think the game plan, because the Packers don't blitz a lot normally, but they blitz a lot more in this game. So I think it's a little bit of both from that. The defense, I think if you're the 49ers, you have to hope is just rust. Because the front four, which is 4 of the best names you'll get as a front four, barely generated any pressure at times in this game against a good offensive line, but not an Eagles offensive line. It's still a good, but it's not great. So, for me, the offense was more because of the weather, and obviously Deebo Samuel went off early, and that probably impacted the game plan quite a bit. But defense, that's the part where it's a bit like, that front four should get pressure without having to blitz, but that wasn't the case. Jordan Love kind of had time to throw it down the field in the first half. So, we'll see what it looks like next week. But, I wouldn't be too worried about the offense as long as it's not raining. But defense, I think they'll need a better plan from Steve Wilkes, the defensive coordinator, coming into this week because if they thought the Packers could run the ball well, wait to see the Lions try and run the ball well.
Exactly, and we'll get to that later on. As for the Packers, you mentioned it, they'll be really, really disappointed not to win this game. But I think the way that Jordan Love's played the second half this year, and the way that, to be fair, I think I'm being impressed with what LaFleur's done the second half of this year. Because the first half of the year, I didn't really get what he was doing, but played good in the second half of the year. He's sort of played to Love's strengths, I think it's pretty safe to say that this won't be their only NFC divisional game. They'll be back here because with what Love showed us the second half of the year, they're in for a bright future, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Youngest offense in the NFL as well. So all the guys around Jordan Love are really young. The offensive line's got a couple of older guys, but 2 of them don't play anymore. So the offensive line will be around for a while. LaFleur will be here for a while. They should make it back to this game. The defense is a bit of a different story because there's loads of good names on paper. This year. No, but also it's a very expensive, good defense if you read the names out. So
they've drafted first round defense every year for the past however long, and you can only afford to pay some of those guys. So
exactly, and you've also got Jair Alexander's had his up and downs this season. Darnell Savage dropped a pick 6 right in his chest in this game. So the defense, we'll see what it looks like. I think they should fire the DC, but they didn't fire the DC when they kind of should have won the Super Bowl with Rodgers. They kept him 2 years in a row. So I'll be surprised if LaFleur does it this year when they're kind of a bit more of an underdog story. But they'll be here again. LaFleur, I think, is one of the better coaches. He's obviously from the Sean McVay, Shanahan tree, but he never gets kind of put on their level. But if you actually look at the offense, he is very close to their level. I'd say his game management's not great, but none of them have actually got very good game management.
No, even Mike
but yeah.
McDaniel, his game management's awful as well. So all of them are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and even when they won the Super Bowl, McVay had so many kind of little fourth downs where it's like 4th and 1, and they're punting. You're like, oh my god, why are you punting here? So, they'll be back. Tough division if you look at how young some of the other teams are going to be and how good the Lions are. But they'll be back. They'll just be kicking themselves because they win this game. They know they can beat the Lions. Doesn't mean they will, but they know they can go into a game and beat the Lions. Then you're in the Super Bowl and anything can happen. So
they'll be back. The Chiefs this year. So there's no team that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's difficult for them, but they'll be back, and I think Jordan Love will probably get a nice fat extension this year where the number starts with a 5 for 50 odd million per year, probably. And we'll see what the off season looks like for them. But they're in a great position.
Awesome. We'll finish off with the Niners. Obviously, you mentioned Deebo Samuel. He suffered a shoulder injury in this one in the first half. He came back in, then he went back out again. He's considered 50-50 heading into the NFC Championship game next week. The good news is it's not a fractured shoulder, so that's great for him. Obviously, they're a supremely talented team, but he's one of their difference makers, and going up against a Detroit team that's very good against the run, they're going to need him as a receiver going into Sunday, aren't they? So hopefully he's ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. If they want to win the Super Bowl, he needs to be healthy. For me, the benefit for this week is they'll know if he's not going to play or not. Whereas it sounds like when you listen to Greg Olsen on the call, who gets a lot of inside information when they do their meetings, that Deebo is going to be heavily featured in the game plan. So when he leaves straight away, your whole game plan you've already made is kind of out the window. At least this week they can say, right, he might not play, so let's make CMC and Ayuk the biggest part of the game plan, and if he plays, it's a bonus. There'll be some big moments where it's 3rd and 1, and you'd love to have Deebo or a CMC run at the same time to kind of confuse the defense. But I think they can win that game without him. But Detroit will fancy their chances much more if they're going into it with one less weapon to have to guard, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll get into the Lions now, because they are into their first NFC Championship game in 32 years after a 23-31 win over the Buccaneers, who never held a lead in this game either. They had the chance to take a game to overtime on the final drive, but Derek Barnes prevented the Tampa Bay comeback with an interception of Baker Mayfield when Tampa Bay were trailing by 8 points. The Bucs came out the 2-minute warning with a ball and were set with what could have been a blockbuster ending, but on the second play of the drive, Barnes ended Tampa Bay's season. And it was a weird game in which Detroit came away winners, but I always felt the Bucs were going to do something, but I always felt the Lions were in control of this. But then if you look at the box score and all the numbers, it was a really, really close game. And what were your thoughts after watching this one, Liam?
Yeah, it was a close game. I think they scored 3 touchdowns in a row, the Lions, and if one of those is a field goal, you can just almost feel like this game could have gone the other way, to be honest. I actually thought this game was really exciting, really fun to watch. I was trying to think about this before we press record. In each game, did the right team win? And this one's quite hard to decide because the Bucs were quite good. But if you look at some of it from a kind of offensive line perspective, they had 2 free rushes on Baker Mayfield where he just gets nailed to the floor instantly. They had a couple of coverage busts in the run game. They kind of left St. Brown open twice. They kept running it. Sorry, they stopped running it even though they got the run to work, which is the first game all year the Bucs have been able to run the ball, and then they stopped in the second half. So I think arguably the Lions were the right team to win, but I thought the game was way better. This was the game where I was like, this could have been the blowout, to be honest. I thought the Texans would have held in more than they did, and this could be the game where it's a 20-point win. It was a fun game. And at the end, they had the chance, and I didn't necessarily think they would go down and score, but I thought they'd get close enough to the end zone where we'd have an exciting finish. But unfortunately, Baker Mayfield did a very Baker throw. That is basically the way he throws interceptions, is that throw where he hasn't read the linebacker, throws it to the wrong side of the coverage, and gets picked off by a linebacker that's known for stopping runs. That's not a linebacker that can cover people, and he still managed to get a pick. So, exciting game, fun game, cool story with the Lions. Obviously, they'll have to go on the road, but they won't fear anyone. One thing that they're good at is game management, running the ball, something that Kyle Shanahan's teams aren't great at going against. So they'll be very confident and very, very excited for the game. But I thought this game was just fun. The atmosphere was quality to watch from home.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah. It was really fun. It was just really weird as well. It just didn't really go how I expected it to go. I think I thought it'd be either a shootout or the Lions would absolutely just dominate the the Bucks, and it wasn't really either. And if anything, actually, the Bucks will be probably kicking themselves because the turnovers they had proved costly in the end. Of course, they outgained the Lions. They lost 2-0 in a turnover battle, and Mayfield's interceptions right at the start and right at the end of the game as well. Sort of just weren't at the right. They're probably the worst opportunity to throw an interception, to be honest with you. And also Chase McLaughlin had a field goal that was like doinked out the post as well. So that again, that's 3 points they could have had. But yeah, they'll be really, really, I mean, look, the Bucks, the fact they got this far, in general is really impressive. But yeah, they'll be like the Packers. They'll be kicking themselves, won't they? Because it was right there for the taking.
Yeah, definitely. And they got a lot of older players as well. They're not as young as the Packers. So there'll be a lot of players there where this was another chance for them. And they've been to the Super Bowl once. Like three-quarters of their starters on defense have already won a Super Bowl. So for them, it'll be a kind of a missed opportunity. I think they've got some big free agents this year as well. A lot of the guys probably and will probably leave because of the situation of the team. Obviously, Baker Mayfield. Will he be a starter next year? Will he not? This was an opportunity to win another playoff game and probably get paid a huge amount of money. So, yeah, a missed opportunity, but Todd Bowles has had a good year, probably kept himself in a job where most people thought this could be the end of it. But, yeah, similar to the Packers, when you're going into that fourth quarter, they're probably thinking, wow, we could go and win this game and play in the playoffs. In an NFC title game. But unfortunately for them, they couldn't get it done. But, yeah, the Lions played well. I thought they started quite slow. Last week they started fast, and you could tell they were up for it. It almost felt like last week was a bit of an emotional free hit, whereas this week they probably felt a bit of pressure. They were like, okay, this is the team we should beat. We're large favourites. We're one game away from the title game. That could be against Green Bay or 49ers. But, yeah, they could say they're a bit tight. Jared Goff missed a couple of throws in the first quarter and then comes out fourth quarter and didn't miss a single throw. So, yeah, they played well, but Buccaneers definitely be kicking themselves.
Absolutely, and the Bucks are a weird team now because actually had an odd season. Very streaky. Won loads of games in a row, lost loads of games in a row, and they ended up winning the games at the right time to win the NFC South. As you mentioned, Todd Bowles, a good year for him. He was in the hot seat coming into this year, but they were really well coached, especially down the stretch. They found some gems in the draft as well. Actually, they got some really nice young players on defense like Yaya Diaby and Kalijah Kancey. Diaby got injured in this one as well. And they're now a really interesting team to follow in this off season because, as you mentioned, they've got lots of free agents on defense. A lot of the defense that the players that won the Super Bowl, and also Mike Evans as well. He had a really good game in this one. He heavily targeted as well. He caught 8 of 12 targets for 147 yards and a TD. But again, this could be his final game as a Buccaneer. He's not expected to re-sign. It's pretty well known that he wants a lot of money, and I don't think the Bucks can really pay him. They've got a lot of cap room, but they've also got a lot of free agents. So this could be the end of an era, couldn't it?
Yeah, so I do think he could re-sign there in the off-season just because they could offer him the most money if they don't sign other players that they want to re-sign. Like Anton Winfield Jr., for example, as a safety, he's going to want a lot of money. If someone pays him a load of money, it could just get to the point where they're like, look, this is kind of the franchise guy. This is, and they haven't been blessed with quarterbacks. This is like their version of Tom Brady for the Patriots in terms of how well loved he is, the team. So I still think there's a chance he could return. I think the only other option for him is if a bad team pays him a lot of money, and will he want to do that, or will he think, I'll stay with the Bucks? Because what I don't think he'll get is I don't think he'll get a good team pay him a lot of money at his age. I think it'll be more like a 1 year come in and win a Super Bowl, and if someone's offering him 3 years, $90 million, he might just be like, oh, stuff that, I'll just go sign for them. So yeah, he could resign. I kind of hope he does go somewhere he can win a ring. He's definitely been the best Buck of all time. Was it 9 seasons he's been there? 9 1,000-yard seasons. Won a Super Bowl. So
consistent.
Yeah, it wasn't amazing in the Super Bowl, but in the 2 games before that in the playoffs, he was absolutely nails and caught. I think he was like 6 for 6 on those 2 games for passes over 20 yards. So, hell of a player. We'll see what he does. But yeah, he is their kind of story. And I think if they don't sign Baker Mayfield and they go draft QB, I just do think there's an argument to say, let's pay him a load of money. He might be rubbish in his last year of that deal, but we know the young QB is going to have a good down-the-field weapon for at least 1 year, and our fans absolutely love him and will spend money buying tickets and buying jerseys. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, but I hope he does go to a contender because I think he deserves a chance of another ring. But, yeah, we'll see. They've got loads of free agents.
Yeah, and as for Baker, if Evans goes, do you think he'd be less likely to re-sign, or do you think the Bucks have said that Todd Bowles has said that they want him back, and Baker said that he would go back, but he's a free agent now after this 1 year go out and prove it deal. He played very well in his prove it deal. Do you think other teams will be sniffing around him? What do you think happens with Baker in the off season?
Yeah, I feel like his best contract will probably come from Tampa Bay because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see. And if Todd Bowles thinks he's a good leader and he's helped the young guys and all the kind of intangibles, then Todd Bowles is an old school head coach. He's going to want Baker to stay. Now, if they try and offer him another prove it deal, I'm talking a 1+1, maybe Baker says, let me go to the Vikings or the Falcons with Bill Belichick or whoever to try and have a chance of winning the Super Bowl. But I think if they offer him a 2-3 year real contract, Geno Smith type money, then yeah, he'd be stupid not to sign because he played really well this year, but I don't think he's that good. So I think if you think about your own career here and you get a 3-year deal and it's guaranteed money for 2 of the 3, I think you should do the deal. So my guess would be he signs for the Bucks. The only way he wouldn't, I think, is if their GM says let's trade up in the draft and draft a young QB. But now they've got in the playoffs, their pick's a lot worse than it would have been. So yeah, my prediction would be he would stay with Tampa Bay on a 2 or 3 year deal. But yeah, if I'm a Vikings or a Falcons or someone with good weapons, no real path to move up in the draft without spending everything we own, I'd be tempted to go at him for 1 year. But I think he'll re-sign with the Bucks on a 2-3 year deal.
Okay, and going back to Detroit, me and Ollie said on Friday that if one team can establish a run, they'll win this game because both teams are very good against the run. And in that case, it was Detroit. They found, you mentioned earlier in the podcast how good they are running the ball. They found some success with Jahmyr Gibbs scoring 2 rushing touchdowns. And that's despite a game, being a game with both QBs having over 40 passing attempts. It's an odd game. But yeah, as for them, obviously, they're in the NFC Championship game now. It feels so weird even saying that. But I don't think it could have happened to a better franchise, could it? Because they've been waiting for so long.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good for the neutrals as well. I don't know many people who will want the 49ers to win the game. Is it the best NFC title game we could have got? I'm not sure. I think the Rams, if you even look at this game, look how much better the Rams played than the Buccaneers did. There's an argument that they played their hardest game in the first round. But yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Dan Campbell's the perfect coach to go on the road against the 1 seed because they are 100% having a fake punt. They are 100% going for it on 4th and 5. They're 100% having a flea flicker. Like 2 or 3 of these things are going to happen because Dan Campbell is just an aggressive head coach. He follows analytics. He understands when his team's an underdog, when they're a favourite, how to go and win a game. So yeah, I think it's a great story. Cool story for Jared Goff as well. And they've got loads of likeable players. Amon-Ra St. Brown's cool. Everyone loves Jahmyr Gibbs. Aiden Hutchinson's a little bit kind of JJ Watt-ish, all-American kind of guy that's not the most likable. But there's other players on the defense, like CJ Gardner-Johnson. Everyone finds him like hysterical to watch him kind of yap at team's quarterback. So yeah, it's a great story. Actually win. I think if the Bucks win this game, the NFC title game is a game that no one wants to stay up and watch, to be honest, because you know what's going to happen. Now the Lions have won, it makes the game more interesting. So yeah, should be a good story, and their fans deserve it because they've been kind of one of the worst teams in the last 50 years before. Dan Campbell turned up and he's turned them into an NFC contender for however long they keep drafting well and have someone on the center they believe in. So yeah.
Yeah, well, they've only won 4 playoff games since 1957, so that's a very, very poor record. And that's obviously that's 70 odd years. That's a long time without with only 4 playoff wins in that time. And as you mentioned as well, flip page to Jared Goff as well. Last 2 games. When he's needed to step up, he has stepped up, which is in big games previously he has sort of shrunk a little bit. So last week he stepped up when needed in the first half, and in this game as well. In the second half, as you said, he was really good as well. And fair play to Ben Johnson as well. Obviously, the play calling he's had this year, like both pass and run, has been awesome. And in the playoffs, going into the playoffs, nothing's changed either. And their defense, although it gives, it just love to give up a lot of passing yards, and that's they're one of the
big
worst
plays as well.
Yeah, one of the worst teams in the league against the pass. But like they're quite good situationally. The defensive line's been great as well. You mentioned Hutchinson; he's like their face of the franchise pretty much. Like obviously, he's the guy who's getting interviewed after the games and everything, rather than the quarterback. again. Yeah, and it's great against the run as well. Like, it's great getting to the QB, it's great against the run, and yeah, the only thing that worries me against going into the game next week against Niners is the fact that Niners are very good on offense. So maybe we might see quite a lot of big plays there, which has a nice ring to it. I'm just fascinated to see the game now because I don't know about you, but I think they've certainly got a shot.
Yeah, obviously you'll do a preview pod later in the week. So I suppose I can give my takes out because it doesn't really matter because I'm not going to be on that one. But I do think we could see another Lions win next week. I do think we can. And we've mentioned it twice now, but I do think people don't want to talk about this, especially if you're like a casual fan, but game management is massively important in playoff games. And who do I trust to get that right out of the two head coaches, regardless of how good one of the head coaches at calling plays? Dan Campbell is going to be so prepared and so aggressive. Yeah, okay, if that 4th and 5 doesn't get converted, they might lose. And we'll do a review pod and it'll be like, oh, what, they should have punted. They lost the game. But 9 times out of 10, Dan Campbell and his analytics team, made the right decisions. So I think they got a hell of a shot. I'd be surprised if it was a blowout in that game. Either way, I'd be very surprised. So I think we're going to get a fun game. I think there'll be loads of points scored and some big plays as well. But yeah, they've got a shot. And I quite like that it's on the road as well because I just feel like on the road they're just going to be like super motivated and super aggressive. Look how hard they were hitting some of these Bucs receivers in this game. Like CJ Gardner-Johnson, Alec Anzalone, they're going to be nightmares to play against if you're the 49ers. So yeah, should be a fun game. And as long as Jared Goff doesn't do old school Jared Goff things, then yeah, they've got a hell of a chance. Because how many times has he played the 49ers? Twice a season, 3 times a season for 4 years, 5 years nearly. So yeah, they know him and know his weaknesses, which is the worry. But yeah, it's strength on strength really for both these two teams. So yeah, should be a fun game.
Awesome, and then we'll finish with the big one, where Kansas City made it 6 AFC Championship games in a row, outdrawing the Bills in a game that certainly lived up to the hype with a very dramatic ending. As always, when these two teams meet, it came down to the very end with Buffalo 27-24 down, but finding some offensive 8 minutes remaining. They marched down to just outside the end zone on a 6-minute drive, but they were stopped by the Chiefs, setting up a 4th and 9 situation down 3 with under 2 minutes left, and up stepped Tyler Bass to tally the game and give the Chiefs one final drive to win the game. But that wasn't needed when the Bass's 44-yard attempt sailed right over the uprights and ended the Bills' season. That also meant that Patrick Mahomes is now 1-0 away from home in the playoffs after playing his first postseason game outside of Arrowhead, his 16th playoff game. Obviously, some of those are Super Bowls, but this game especially was just so fun. The first half actually went super quickly. The Bills found a lot of success running the ball early. It felt like the first half was over in about an hour, and they had the lead 17-13 at half time. After the 2-second quarter, Josh Allen rushing touchdowns. The second half began with a bang as Mahomes and Kelsey broke Brady and Gronk's record for the most postseason touchdowns after tying it in the first half. But after that, it just got even more crazy because Josh Allen hit Khalil Shakir for a 13-yard touchdown towards the end of the third before Isaiah Pacheco rushed for a 4-yard score to start the fourth quarter. And that ended up being the winning touchdown for the Chiefs, but the remaining 40 minutes was certainly dramatic, because on the next drive, Buffalo went for a weird DeMar Hamlin fake punt after the Chiefs forced a 3-and-out, and they were stopped. And then the very next play, Isaiah Pacheco put the Chiefs in the red zone down to almost the goal line with a long run down to the 3, and it looked like Mecole Hardman had put the Chiefs up 2 scores, but the ball came out before he broke the plane and fumbled over, resulting in a touchback. And 2 points later, the Bills, back on offense again. They only needed a field goal to take the game to overtime, and they went on that long drive, and they needed us to football through a fumble. They carried on after that, recovered. They got to move down the field, and they came unstuck in the red, just outside the red zone. They have a few key Josh Allen incompletions. There's a lot of talk whether he should have passed through the check down to Stephon Diggs or not. But no, he went for the shot in the middle of the field instead. They were forced the field goal, and the rest was history. And with that, the Chiefs are now back in the AFC Championship game, despite so many issues not on offense throughout the season. But in the postseason, they've found what was needed. And Liam, you've done it again. I'm sure you're buzzing after that win.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, obviously Super Bowls are great, but that was one of the best non-Super Bowl wins that I've watched in my time supporting the Chiefs. To be honest, I think the road part was key, like making it a fun game. Obviously, the element of people doubting the team all season, even probably Chiefs fans doubting the team all season. So, it was one of the most fun games that I've watched as a fan. It probably was as good as that game 2 years ago when it was there was 21 or 35 points scored after the 2-minute warning. So in theory, it doesn't look as fun. But if you actually watch this game, it is as entertaining. The only reason there wasn't as many points is because the Bills were just taking 9-minute drives, whereas that year they were either punting or they were scoring in 2 minutes. If you go back and watch that game, it was either a punt or Josh Allen was throwing it deep to someone after 3 minutes and then they'd score. So yeah, for me, it was a really fun game. Obviously, if my team lost, I'd have been gutted. I said to my friends on a group chat before, if I could pick any game to lose, it wouldn't have been this game. Like, I'd rather lose to the Ravens or I'd rather lose in the Super Bowl. I think the Bills rivalry and Josh Allen, obviously second best quarterback in the league, there's always a bit of Mahomes-Allen chat. So as a Chiefs fan, this was the game not to lose. So yeah, it was really fun. And one cool stat for this is this was the most yards per play in any Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, or Peyton Manning playoff game in history. That's how good the offense was in this game, which is absolutely crazy. If you take the kneel downs out, I think it goes field goal, touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown. And obviously then they had the punt at the end of the game and the turnover as well. So yeah, they could have scored on every drive. The offense looked incredible. 2 weeks in a row, to be honest, the offense has looked good. But last week, everyone thought it was just because of the defensive line injuries to Miami. But this week, they were even better. So yeah, it was really fun. Bit of a worry watching it on the other way. Like, as a Chiefs fan, you're sat there like, okay, if this was my team, I'd rather just score. But I can see why the Bills are taking as much time as possible. But logically, they should have just tried to score. They spent too much time worrying about the clock. But because the first half went the way it did, you could tell their head coach and offensive coordinator were like, yeah, we'll just do it this way and we'll win the game. But unfortunately, when you get to the 2-minute warning, you've still got 30 yards to go. You've put yourself in a position where it's very hard to win that game. Your best chance is probably a field goal. And if you watched it on TV, the wind's just swirling all over the place. So, yeah, it was a great game. Can't blame Josh Allen, in my opinion, for the loss. But I would take some umbrage if I was a Bills fan to the head coach, because it worked first half, but second half, the plan of just running down the clock was not working. So I want to swap back and have a more normal offense, but they would just still run the whole game. And yeah, Patrick Mahomes does it again. I quite like Mahomes when he's the villain. It's quite fun.
Yeah, literally everyone probably wanted the Bills to win this game, just because certainly in this house, like Charlie, watching the game with Charlie was just so funny because he's a Broncos fan. So he was he absolutely hates the Chiefs. So it was I mean as someone who supports the Dolphins, I'm very grateful the Chiefs did win this game, especially as the Chiefs knocked out the Dolphins as well. But yeah, no, it's just conflicting moods in the house as the game went on last night. But
who did you pick to win?
I picked the Chiefs. So both me and Ollie picked the Chiefs on Friday. So we both went 4 for 4. So I don't mind that. After last week, I went division round. Sorry, the wildcard round. I went 2 of 6. So I think my picks were much better this week.
You're a comeback. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. It will sit the Chiefs. Interesting week for the Kelsey clan. We saw them all there on Sunday night with Taylor Swift in the box in Buffalo. Jason Kelsey certainly with the headlines over celebration of the second touchdown from Travis. Obviously, that saw him and Pat break the record. There's a lot of talk on social media about Travis potentially joining Jason Kelsey in retirement. He's not the greatest of seasons, but certainly a lock for the Hall of Fame. And we saw why in this game, didn't we?
Yeah, he was great. He's been great. He was great last week as well.
Last 2 weeks, certainly.
Yeah, the third and fourth quarter, you get some national podcasts. If anyone listens to the Bill Simmons podcast here, you get takes like this all the time. But they were like, oh yeah, second half, Kelsey kind of is too old. He can't do anything. It's like, well, no. The other teams, after he has a first half like that, they have to put 3 players on him, which is what they did this week. And then you just see MVS kind of streaking open down the field, Pacheco being able to run the ball. So it all starts and ends with Travis Kelsey. And I think the week off, where he didn't get the 1,000-yard season after that Chargers game, has done him all the world of good. Like Andy Reid spoke about it. He spoke about how much healthier he feels now than he has all season. And I think you can tell. He hasn't got the yak that he had last year, but you can tell that he can still shake open and beat anyone. Obviously, this week, Bills were down to their fourth choice linebackers, and the Chiefs just exploited that. But that's what Andy Reid does. He'll just find whoever the weakest person is, and that's where Kelsey will line up. And the same will happen next Sunday. So yeah, he was great. Obviously, the first red zone catch for the touchdown was more on Mahomes because he used his eyes to move the safety. The second one was just a 34-year-old that probably didn't want to smash into 3 people on a screen, but he did it and scored. But yeah, he was really good. Him and Mahomes, obviously, I think it's 16, is it, touchdowns now to set the record?
Yeah, 16.
He's 4 touchdowns and 6 receptions away from the all-time record in the playoffs over Jerry Rice. So there's a chance 6 receptions and a touchdown this weekend, he gets close, if not beats those records. So yeah, hell of a game from him. We'll see if he can do it next week against Kyle Hamilton. I have a sneaky suspicion he will be able to do it because this is just who he is as a person. I hope he doesn't retire, but like you said, he's a lock for the Hall of Fame. If he does retire, it'll probably be because him and his brother can go in as the first brothers ever, first time in 5 years, which would be pretty cool. But knowing Jason Kelce, if Travis says that to him, he'll say, no, just carry on playing if you want to play. Don't worry about me. So yeah, we'll see. But it's a pretty cool storyline, and him and Mahomes definitely the best duo ever. Obviously, I am biased, but I just think the best tight end to ever live. So, including Gronk. So yeah, they played well.
Certainly the best receiving tight end, you could say, and he's underrated at what he does in the ground game too as well. So certainly, again, lot for Hall of Fame. We'll go to the Bills now. Obviously, they fall short again. Their postseason ended in a divisional round or later 3 times for the Chiefs now in 5 years, which is sort of bad luck of the draw, you could say. But obviously, the issue isn't Josh Allen, as you mentioned earlier, that he's been so good, and they had the run game this time too, which they've not had in the postseason before. The injuries on defense of the Bills were piling up. How would you assess their season? And obviously, what do you think went wrong for them in this game?
Injuries definitely impacted them defensively. Certainly. But they've never been able to stop the Chiefs in the playoffs. If you look at every game they play, Mahomes' best game every year is Bills in the playoffs. It's just, yeah. So for me, I think head coaching was definitely an issue in this game, and so was offensive coordinating, because I don't think you should spend the whole second half thinking, okay, right, the Chiefs, who've had a bad season on offense by their standards, okay, they're going to score every time they touch the ball. So every possession we take has to take 8 minutes, 6 minutes, which is all their plan was. I think you have to have it in the second half, the mindset of, right, we just have to score more points than the other team, not worry about the clock. And if you've got the second best quarterback in the world, someone who's probably going to be a Hall of Famer himself, to be honest, I would imagine. I just don't think the game plan can be to worry about the clock that much. So that was an issue for me. Obviously, the fake punt. There's an argument. He said it after the game that he called it. I know in the booth they said there is an argument that if there's 10 players, the players were just automatically audible to a fake punt, and maybe he just didn't want to throw his players under the bus. But if he did call it, I know it didn't matter in this game, but that was a stupid call. I think just if you want to go for it on 4th and 5, go for it with Josh Allen. He could probably run 6 yards, and then they've got the ball and they can go and score. So for me, I think it was more on Joe Brady and Sean McDermott, add in some injuries. And then, unfortunately, for them as a franchise, they just haven't added any weapons consistently around Josh Allen for the last 4 years. Like, this is the first year they've had a good draft of Kincaid and then Cook, but it's the year that Stephon Diggs falls off a cliff. So I think if you look, I read a stat, it was something like the Packers have had 8 top 5 round picks on receivers and tight ends in the last 3 seasons. The Bills have had 2. And it's just like... how are you ever going to get any weapons to play alongside your players in that sense? This is the best offensive line they've had. Josh Allen had his best season on the ground. So, yeah, for me, it was more GM just hasn't drafted well over the last 3 or 4 years. And then, for this game specifically, I thought the head coach and offensive coordinator just didn't have the right game plan, to be honest. But, yeah, it's hard to go against. It's like, I think the Chiefs are their ghost, aren't they? They're the team that they just can't beat, like the Bulls with the Pistons back in the day in the NBA. But yeah, for me, I think it was more offensive coordinator and head coach. I think if you blame Josh Allen, you just don't like Josh Allen because you love Joe Burrow or you love Herbert or you love Lamar. Because for me, it was the right play to go for the Shakir play. The issue was that Chris Jones got walked the tackle back into Josh Allen's lap, and he didn't have enough time. I don't think you can blame it there because he's wide open not wide open, but he's open enough in the end zone to score a touchdown. But for me, I think it's more the 4 or 5 plays before that where it's just run on first down, Spags is throwing everyone on the run. It's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 9 for 3 consecutive drives in a row, and they still kept going with the run. So yeah, that's who I would blame it on if I was a Bills fan.
Yeah, they've got an interesting offseason coming up because they're a bit of cap hell, to put it politely, because they're they've got over 40 million over the cap right now, and they've got a load of free agents. There's a chance that because Stephon Diggs is an out for his contract this year, and because Gabe Davis is a free agent, there's a chance to go an entirely new receiving core next year, which is interesting. But yeah, like I don't know what would you do if you were Buffalo this offseason, because defensive, you've got a lot of players on defense that are free agents too. Certainly there's going to be some turnover, isn't there?
Yeah, it is difficult because Sean McDermott's done this a lot for me, these big games. Look at the 13-second game where he didn't squib kick it and he kicked it out. And I don't think he's great at game management in the playoffs, to be honest. So they shouldn't do this because they've finished the second seed. But I do think their only answer is a bit of a fresh start in the head coach position. But they won't do that. I think I would hire a defensive coordinator with new ideas from a different scheme. So you've got my ideas if I'm the head coach, and then I've got his ideas. They'll probably give Joe Brady the job, I would imagine, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, apart from that, I would just say the draft should be full of weapons and secondary players because of how old their secondary is. That should just be all they draft this year. I would try and move on from a couple of players. I know that Micah Hyde has got a hell of a, I think it's $15 million savings if you cut him. Rasul Douglas, $10 million. Rasul Douglas played well, but you need money. So anyone like that, I would be cutting. The safeties could leave. I know that their contracts are up in 2 years, so you could cut those guys. I think for me, I would just go young and go in the secondary, go heavy on the weapons in free agency and in the draft, and try and keep the core of the team as similar as possible because it's still really good. And then I would just hope that someone else beats the Chiefs in the playoffs like the Bengals did 2 years ago. I think that's probably their best shot. But Diggs, by the way, has got 4 years left.
Oh,
they can't cut him either. If they cut him, they would have $31 million in dead cap. So they can't do that. They can't cut Von Miller, which is one of the worst contracts in the NFL. So for me,
I saw a stat of Von Miller. He got paid $14 million this year, and he got $2 million per tackle, and obviously 0 sacks as well. So that's that's one of the worst contracts.
He actually had a good play in this game, but the whole season has been kind of nothing. So next year is going to be really hard for them because they would probably love to trade Diggs, get rid of Von Miller, and then they've got loads of money where they can go at it, but they would lose money if they do that. So they have to wait a year or two for both of those players. So for me, I would just go young in the draft on receivers and corners. Take my lumps. I'd have to keep Stephon Diggs. You have to keep Von Miller because you have to, and then I would just kind of get rid of some of the other older players in the team and just go again. If it's changes on the coaching staff can make a difference because there's not much else you can do. But you're right, they are in cap hell, which is good for your Dolphins for the future.
The Dolphins are in cap hell as well, though. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with both of those teams. They're both over 40 million over the cap. So fascinating off season for both those teams, and they've got both teams have got a load of free agents as well. So I'm sure the Jets are sitting back there and absolutely loving that. Should make the AFC race next year really interesting, at least. Yeah,
Bills have got Josh Allen though, so in the end they'll always be quite happy as a team. One thing I would say as well, just build a dome now. Come on. The new stadium still isn't going to be a dome. Let's just change that. Get a dome. Josh Allen in a dome. No weather issues. Can throw it 70 yards every week. We don't need to keep playing in cold weather and having to run the ball when our quarterback is fine throwing the ball in a dome. But you are right. The Jets probably looking at the whole division being like, oh, next year could be our chance. But I think with Josh Allen, we could see the Bills still win this division for a long time.
Awesome, and that's a good place to end the podcast. As always, Liam, this is probably the last one we'll be on the podcast this season. So thank you for joining me throughout the season. It's been great. It's been great having you on, and I bet you're hoping the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, aren't you?
Yeah, maybe if when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, I might be on for a Super Bowl preview. So I'll be hoping for that. But it's been a pleasure to be on throughout the season. This pod's always really, really good, really insightful. The preview pod as well, for anyone listening, is always amazing. So go listen to that, because I know you'll be digging in deep for the preview with the fact there's only 2 games this week. So your notes will be like 10 pages of A4 probably going into that game. So but it's been a pleasure to be on, and enjoy the championship games next weekend.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to them, and that's the thing with championship games because there's just 2 left. We're going to go really in depth, as you said, on Friday on the podcast, so that'd be awesome. That's it. That is. Well, we've only got 2 weeks left of the NFL season really now, and that's it's been a long old season. I've been Sam Morris. This has been a Full 10 Yards NFL podcast, and I will see you on Friday as we preview those conference championship games. See you next time.